The other meeting that I think that got glossed over a little bit. I seen a few eyes roll back in their head, so I just thought, well, I'll just jot down a couple notes how I lay out a block. So probably the most important thing to do is get your block prepared properly, right? So I think we're all pretty much aware of that, but I like to make sure my block is pretty much parallel. And I'd like to make sure I got that center line on there, make sure things are even. So, obviously we're going to be cutting on a couple different sides of this block. We're going to be cutting this way, we're going to be cutting this way. So you want it to sit on your table and your advance on nice and flat. And if you got anything that's out of whack, it's going to distort your pattern. So if you over exaggerate here a little bit. But if this is not parallel, all your plumb cuts are going to be way out of whack here. So you don't have to be right on an ant's ass, but try to get this as parallel as possible. And then make sure you chase your center line all the way around the block, because it's going to become important once you start cutting things apart. So probably that center line is the most important thing that I like to chase after, all right? And then just quickly, I'll flip through pages here, guys, so if there's any questions, slow me down. I like to talk kind of faster, but getting back to the pattern, what this block is here, what I laid out here was a mallard with kind of a little head profile. And what I did from one of the other ducks I carved out, I kind of like the way it looked, so I just kind of hung on to the top cutout. It makes a nice pattern for the next time around. You do some of these ducks and you say, hey, I like the way it turned out, let's do a couple more, boom. Get your center point, put it down there. 3 seconds, you're traced in, you're good to go, right? One of the other things I like to do on the pattern is whether you use a Godin book or anybody else's book, usually you look on the pattern and he's got the shoulder lines, he's got the end of the side pockets, he's got the start of the tail. And I like to take those lines and I like to chase those down the side of the block. I don't know if you can see that here, but probably one I think is most important when I go about this is the shoulder line. So I'll lay out the shoulder line here and I'll bring that down the side here. So like I say, some of the patterns that I kind of like, I kind of make templates out of. So, if you make your templates here, again, it's just a matter of you laid out your top pattern that fits the block. And it's nice if you can have your block large enough so you got a little meat left over. And a lot of times on the patterns, sometimes the block and woods are not quite what you want, but if somebody makes the duck a quarter-inch narrower, who's going to know the difference, right? So try to leave a bit of meat there, so as you're laying your pattern out. And then once in a while, your block will be a little bit short. If your block is short, I find it's best to try to always make sure you got that top cap board left over so you got a little meat there. So if you got to sacrifice your pattern, like this block here was probably about a ½ inch narrower than I want, I'll just drop that pattern to the bottom. Because who knows how heavy that duck is, maybe it's going to float a little bit lower that particular day, who cares, right? I think it's more important that you keep that top board so you got enough meat, so you got enough to keep the integrity there. So with that side pattern traced on there, I'm going to go back and forth here a little bit. The point of the shoulder, get this line here. I like to lay that out on the top on a flat profile first and chase that down the side. And then on the side profile of the pattern, I just put it on hardboard masonite here, but you can see there's a height, how far down this height of that shoulder is in that pattern. So I like to measure that off that neckline, measure down. So I'll measure down, whatever it is, if it's, ½ inch down, 3/4 inch down. And you can kind of see I got a tick mark on here. Right about here, that's where that shoulder is. Kind of reverse the pattern here, guys, but you'll see that's where that's how far I want to be carving down that shoulder. So on that shoulder layout line, I know how deep I want it to be. I know where that shoulder wants to be located from that flat profile. So then while this block is still in the nice, hard, firm, squared up shape, I'll take this over to the drill press, and I'll put an 1/8 inch bit in there, and I'll just take that down here and set my stop on the drill press. Here's how deep I want to drill, right? And I take this on a drill press, I'll drill these 2 holes here before I do anything else. That drill bit goes down to a certain point, and that's it. So later on as you're carving, as you're nibbling away with your carving, you just chase that point of that drill bit down. And you're going to be right on the money every time. Both sides are going to be level, going to be in the same place. So it works real nice. So I got another board here to kind of see. Kind of show you the process, what happens. So after I laid out those shoulder points, drilled those 2 holes down to where I want them, and I got all my other lines under, now I'm ready to cut. So I guess, I don't know, everybody probably goes through the same thing. You wonder, well, what cut should I make first? What am I trying to do here? So I just kind of look through the pattern a little bit. And what I'm trying to do, I want to save this top cap board, because you'll need this for a few other operations as you continue on. You also need the bottom board a little bit. So I guess, look through the pattern. Okay, this is going to be scrap. I don't need to save that. This is going to be scrap. So I kind of number my cuts, what I'm going to do. Cut number 1, I'll get this out of here. Cut number 2, cut number 3. And then I got that stuff out of the way. All right? And then while the block is still in its nice square form, you got some of this garbage removed that you don't need. Get that out of there, get that out of there. Now when this block is nice and flat on the table of the bandsaw, I guess if there's anything I find that's important, trying to mount your head, you want a good, flat, tight fitting neck to that body, right? So then I make this neck cut. On the table or the bandsaw is nice and square. You just take your time, make sure you really get that cut as straight as possible. I don't even sand it. I mean, I can go slow enough. When it comes time to put that on, the glue, what little bit of air there might be, that glue fills it up. Works out great. But try not to overcut. When you get to the certain point where the back starts to rise, that's the stop cut. And then you can come back with your cut number 5 and peel that off there. So once you've done that, basically this top piece comes off here. This top board, I got this screwed on. So after you made that cut number 5, this is what comes off your body, right? Okay, you're going to hang on to that because that's going to be pretty valuable in the next couple steps. So now that you've got that cut off of there, I reattach it. So here again, I've got this body big enough. So when I made that cut, I mean, try to do your best to keep that nice and flat as you run through the table saw. But if you get any waver in there, it's not really going to make much difference because it's going to fit exactly right back on that body. But it is nice to do your best to keep her nice and trued up there. Okay? So when I reattach that scrap piece around it, so when you make your top profile cut, you want these screws, obviously, to be outside that pattern line. You don't want to be putting your screws in here and they're going to be hitting that darn thing later on. Okay? Okay, so you made all your 4, 5, number 6 cuts. The last one is cut number 7. And that just gets rid of a little bit of scrap up here that you don't need anyway. Okay, so once that's happened, your sides come off of there, obviously. And every once in a while you might need those sides for cradling things or other operations. But now that I've got it at that point, here again, back to these center lines. I take this top off here, but before I do that, I'll just take a flexible steel roll and I'll take a square here, set it on the edge of the table. I'll dangle this down here and I'll chase these lines down so I get that center line back on there. Cut it back. Take this cap off here, reestablish these lines, take a flexible ruler and get those lines back under. You're always chasing those lines around, make sure you got them on there. So now that that top is off of there, you can kind of see those 2 drill holes are there. So that's right where you want it to be because it helps you line up your other patterns that you put on there eventually. Okay, any questions so far? Block of wood, still a block of wood, right? Okay, so the same thing is true with the bottom. I like to make sure I put that center line back on here. And then, put that center line back on there. It's time to think about your keel a little bit. So, in a way, you almost want to start this process of ass backwards. So you know what size duck it's going to be. You probably have about an 8 or 9 inch keel. And you're going to have a weight hole in there. You're going to have your holes in there for mounting this thing. So it's kind of nice to understand what you're going to have for a keel. And this particular keel I got here is about 8.5, 9 inches long. And I got my screw holes about 5 inches apart. So here again, just think about where I want the screw holes. This particular pattern works kind of nice. 3 inches back hits that screw hole. Another 2 inches back is the 8 from the front that mounts it on the pretty well center. And it's nice to have those holes, know where you're going to be, so you don't have to go extra holes. So once I know where that's at, this bottom board comes off. And I'll do the same thing on the body. I'll chase that same measurement, you know. Then the other thing with these posts here, the front post, I adjusted a little bit. If you look in the drawings later on, when you get a chance to read through that. I also try to understand where I'm going to drill the hole for my neck. So later on, when I drill this hole for the neck, I have to make sure this post has enough meat around there to capture that dowel as well. So it's not rocket science. You can wiggle that around a little bit, but you don't want to get too narrow, obviously. And then when you do put your screws here, I mean, you don't want to run some screws there without a pilot hole because you'll cause that to split out. So it is kind of narrow, but if you take your time and you drill your pilot holes for your screws, you'll get a good grip on there. So that's kind of how I locate the post. And then here's the another reason why you save that top cradle board. So this is that scrap that you're real careful to save, right? So take that over to the drill press and you're nice and flat level. So now you can start your hauling out with a Forstner type of drill that you decide to use. So that's kind of how I get to that process. And around the perimeter here, I mean, it's not rocket science here. Again, I'll just chase this around. I'll, grab 5/8, 3/4. I'll just kind of wiggle it around there and I'll kind of blend it in. That way, later on, when you are satisfied with your hauling out, when you're to the point you want to glue this back on, right now it's 3/4, but eventually as you start, rounding these sides over, this 3/4 is going to be reduced a little bit. So you're probably going to end up with about a 1/2 inch. So you really, get this thing thinned down a little bit. And another thing I do before I glue that bottom on, this one here I did not go crazy yet. I want to take a little bit more out of this. But I mean, everybody's got a sense of feel with their fingers or calipers. Some guys like to take this a little bit more and do a little carving initially and reduce this a little bit further so that you can tell exactly where you're going to be. I mean, ultimately you want to get this down as far as possible, keep it pretty thin. I think it relieves some of the stress off the wood so you don't get a lot of cracking going on. And then one of the other things I'll do before I glue it all up, I'll go in here with the Forstner bit, kind of about a 3/4 inch or 1/4 or 1 inch kind of a ball bit. I'll kind of go around the edges here so it's kind of concave, kind of roll. Again, to kind of get some of that stress off that wood so it doesn't get a shear point. Everybody nodding their head in agreement, right? Okay, so when you do get ready to glue this back on, here again, you got some nice solid surface here to put some glue on. You got some glue on here. And then when you put your screws on here, boy, that just, gets that attached to that center. It's good and firm. Now with these same two screws, I don't know, one of them pages in there. The reason I kind of like to have these all match, so when I get ready to carve this thing, I got some type of Whirlybird vise here, but just make some type of adapter plate. Everybody's got a different vise, folding board, whatever you want to do. Here again, I made this adapter board, fits those same screw holes, right? That works out kind of nice. That way you're not putting extra holes in the bottom of your eagle here. And then, once the carving process is over, when I start painting these things, do a little bit more handwork. I don't need that big tank of vise on there. I'll just put a 2x2 on there. Here again, holes are the same size, so I can hold this deck as I'm painting or doing whatever I'm going to do here. Then at the end of the program, when everything is done, here's where you end up. You're back to the same two screw holes and everything goes back together the way it should be. All right? So there's a few other things here with the head. I guess when I cut this out, I cut about 3/4 of them out at the same time. So I got a couple heads in various stages. And locating that head hole for the neck. Yeah, let me back up a little bit. So grab your head first of all. Here again, that block is pretty much important. Make sure it's absolutely parallel square to itself because you're going to be laying this on all 4 sides as you machine it as well. And here again, what I do with these patterns is, if I like them, I'll make copies versus chasing, tracing paper all the time and, tracing up carbon paper. So if you like your pattern, get the block that size that you need. I'll center this on the block. This here would happen to be kind of a low head profile. So if you look close, you can kind of tell, well, how do I make that head without cutting the point of that nose off? So basically you just jack this pattern up a little bit so that you're cutting a little bit off the neck here. That way you get your beak hanging down below your body. So if there's anything that seems to be important as you go on here, no matter what your pattern is, it always seems nice to make sure that you get a flat shelf to put your head on. So whether that's always somewhere in here, if you ever try to, on some of those patterns, put your head at an angle, I think it's not possible, but you're asking for a lot more work to get her to sit nice and tight. So I always try to make sure that's a flat shelf. Okay, so I got that head on there, right? Take the profile of the head, chase up the sides, get to where you want it. And also I put the eye hole in there at this point too, just locate that eye. Here again, you got center all the way around the block. Chased up these two sides here, you got this pattern. Boom, it's automatically centered, you're done in about 2 seconds. One other thing I'd like to do when I put this head pattern on there, on the top side, I guess I call it a stop cut. But if I put another line back here, so as the bill comes back to the face of the duck, you don't want one side different than the other. It's always kind of nice when you're measuring your bill as you're doing your bill layout and you're carving that thing. If you got these two lines nice and straight, boy, the life just is a lot better that afternoon when you're doing that work. So I make sure I put that little line there, okay? Other than that, that trace is on there just like such. That piece is on there. And then, I don't know if everybody does a 3D cutout, but I'll take the front, I'll put the front on there as well. So here again, you can see the side profile, you can see the top of the head. Chase that line around, you got the center of the block. Just that fast, you got the front of that on there. So you got the head, the block laid out, takes you all about 5 minutes to get it all laid out, okay? So then when the block is still square, you got everything laid out the way you want it, this is the time again, go back to the drill press.
Excuse me, why would you want to have the front of the head on there?
When we crack this off here in a couple seconds, you'll see.
Okay, thank you.
So back to the eye locations. If you put that eye in there now, it's going to guarantee that both sides are the same. Put on a drill press, this is nice flat square. And the hole that I drill is smaller than the eye. I like to keep it a little bit smaller than the eye, just in case you need to tweak something as you get done. In case you got a little bugger that you want to straighten out again. So I keep it a little bit smaller than the eye. So I use about, this one here is probably about 5/30 seconds. In that eye, there's going to be probably 9 millimeters. So it gives you a little chance to kind of, straighten it out later on. And now again, the block is still square here on the drill press. Take this block, if you see this side of this head here, not magic or anything here, no science involved. Outer portion of the neck, both sides, plumb it down. Okay, just, do the math, find the middle. Even if it's not in the middle, it doesn't hurt. As long as it's on the center line this way. That's the most critical thing. This could be a quarter, half inch, one way or the other. As long as you feel you got enough meat in that neck to capture that dowel. Okay. So on the drill press, like I say, it gives you a nice perpendicular hole at 90 degrees. You did the same thing in this block earlier on. Put this bottom on, it's nice and flat. So now you got this head cut out. So when you cut this head out, I guess I didn't put the 1, 2, 3s in here, but I'd like to do my top profile first. If you're going through that pamphlet there, you can kind of see what I did. And here again, I try to leave this stuff on there, so as I chase it out, I'll leave maybe an 1/8 inch here. Leave the side scraps on, make a cut, stop, come from the front, do the same thing. And then I'll do my front profile next, kind of the same thing, leave a little stitch on so it stays on there. And then I'll come back and I'll do my side cut. And you got all these things to kind of cradle you up, won't be flat yet. It might be a little chattering on the saw, but it's pretty much you're at flat at this point yet. So then you can finish up these cuts here. Here again, this neck cut here, take your time, slow as possible, make sure you got that just as flat as can be. And nobody likes to sand, obviously, right? So take your time to get it flat. So you're going to end up with all these cuts. At that point, you'll be just like such. And then you can just snap the pieces off the sides. And your head's about 90% ready to roll, right? Okay, so now you want to locate your head on your body. So this hole here, like I said, it could be a quarter inch, half inch, one way or the other. As long as you feel you got enough feet. This hole could be drilled here, could be drilled here. So I just take a line or ruler, pull it across here. I'll put a witness mark on either side. I know this profile can kind of cut to match my front of my body here. Just line this front edge up here. Find that witness mark, put a mark here, chase that line across, that tells me where that dowel goes. boom, you're there. Long over to the drill press. Here again, you're sitting on that bottom board. Make sure you got the bottom board just in case you have a little waviness in your cut. Put that on there. Here again, you're at 90 degrees to that table, perpendicular. Drill that hole, and you'll be right on the money every time. Then the other thing is, if you keep this right on dead center, you want to change the little position with the head. You can twist that. You're twisting on a flat, not at an angle. Because if you had a head joint that was on a slant, you're going to do this, right? So if you do that, keep everything flat on the table when you first make all your blocks and your cuts, things work out pretty well. Okay? So, I think I want to do it fairly faster, guys, so I don't know if you got any questions or not, or, well, shit, that's kind of how I approach it.
Very helpful.
Okay, so, every other class, we gotta pass things around.